assault them, are saying that they have the weapons and they'll hit the whole of Europe. And today I'm saying it again. If you do not close our sky, it's a matter of time when Russian rockets will land on the territory of NATO countries and kill the people of NATO countries.
Well, Moscow says that base was being used to train foreign fighters, and it's warned that supply routes into Ukraine are legitimate military targets.
On
the 13th of March, an assault on the military drill centers of the Ukrainian forces was carried out. The Kiev regime was preparing foreign combatants to transfer them to the military action zones to fight Russian forces. We also hit the base of the incoming foreign ammunitions there. 180 foreign combatants were killed, and a large stock of foreign ammunitions was destroyed in the strike.
Well, the besieged city of Mariupol, that's in the south, is facing worsening conditions. It's coming under intense Russian bombardment. There you go. And food and water are running out. Another aid convoy failed to reach there on Sunday. But there are diplomatic efforts underway. Ukrainian and Russian negotiators are set to speak virtually on Monday, with both sides saying that they made progress in talks over the weekend. We'll have more on those talks shortly with Natasha Butler, who will be joining us from Lviv. But first, Jonah Hull wraps up the latest developments from Yavorov.
Making reportedly slow progress on major fronts, Russia has one daughter, a niece and her grandchild in the car, making a dash for the Polish border.
At home, my sick father, a husband and a brother-in-law stayed behind. I would pick up arm myself and fight, but we have to save our children.
And once again calls for NATO to intervene to enforce a no-fly zone over Ukraine.
Rockets have fallen 10 kilometers from the border with Europe. Tomorrow they may fall 10 kilometers on the other side in Poland, where our wives and children are now. I call on Europe, save yourselves, save us, because tomorrow it will be too late.
But NATO continues to have no appetite to confront Russia directly as the war grinds on. In cities like Chernihiv in the north. Steady nerves required here to remove an unwelcome delivery through someone's front window. Civilians, those brave or desperate enough to attempt escape, continue to leave areas close to Kyiv like Irpin, where an American journalist was killed when he and a colleague were fired on by Russian forces. And no respite yet again for Mariupol. Satellite images show swathes of destruction in the southern city, besieged for 2 weeks, the life being strangled out of it. An aid convoy once again prevented from entering. There is one constant, the inexhaustible, morale-boosting, Russia-defying presence of a comedian who once played the role of president on TV, now handing out medals and giving the performance of his life. Jonah Hull, Al Jazeera, Yavoriv.
Let's now bring in Natasha Butler. She's joining us from Lviv. So, Natasha, another round of talks scheduled to start in just over an hour's time. What are we expecting?
Yes, both Ukrainian and Russian negotiators have confirmed that there will be another round of talks today at 10:20 local time here in Ukraine. This time, though, the talks won't be in person. They will be via video conference. Now, there haven't been any major breakthroughs in the rounds of talks that we've had until now. But on Sunday, both sides, both Russian and Ukrainian officials said that they had seen some signs of progress. Well, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said that he hoped, of course, that these talks will lead to peace and security for his country. He also said that he hoped the talks might lead to a meeting between the two presidents, between himself and the Russian leader Vladimir Putin. He said that is what people want to see. He also repeated his call for NATO to impose a no-fly zone over the country to stop the constant Russian shelling in so many parts of Ukraine. He said unless NATO did that, then it might see Russian shells or missiles fall on its countries. Now, that comes after an attack on Sunday, a Russian missile attack on a military base not far from here, Lviv, in western Ukraine. It killed 35 people. More than 130 were injured in that attack that took place very close to the Polish border, just some 10 kilometers away. Poland, of course, a NATO country.
Meanwhile, Natasha, UK intel says that Russia has allegedly established a blockade of the Black Sea. What's that about? Tell us more.
Yes, the UK intelligence service putting out pretty much daily reports on the situation in Ukraine. In its latest report, British intelligence officers say that they believe that Russia has established a distant blockade of the Black Sea coast, that Russian naval strikes are taking place against an increased number of Ukrainian targets, and also that Russian forces have conducted one amphibious landing on the Sea of Azov and could look to do more. Now, what the British intelligence services are saying is that all this is effectively cutting Ukraine off from its maritime border, and that could affect things like, of course, supplies. In fact, we spoke to a farmer here in Western Ukraine a few days ago who said that he had already seen a major disruption in his supplies of things like seeds and fertilizers because they normally come through one of Ukraine's ports. Also, that southern coast, it is an area where Russia's made advances, taken cities, for example, the city of Kherson, and on the Sea of Azov, very close there, the city of Mariupol continues to be bombarded by Russian shelling. We know that there are some 400,000 people still trapped there. It has been nearly 2 weeks, I should say, a situation there on the ground which by all accounts is absolutely awful. The mayor calling it apocalyptic. People have run out of essential items, of water, of food. We've even heard reports of people fighting amongst the rubble, trying to find what food they can. A humanitarian crisis there of the most enormous proportions.
Thank you so much, Natasha Butler, reporting from Lviv. At least one person has been killed and 3 injured after a shell hit an apartment block in Kyiv. The 9-story building in the Obolonsky district in the northwest was targeted early on Monday morning. Emergency services put out a large fire and they rescued several survivors. Ukrainian officials say they're doing everything they can to reclaim territory in Irpin, a suburb of Kyiv. The mayor says most civilians have fled, but a large number are staying. The city has come under heavy shelling in the last week, with people cut off from electricity, gas, and the internet. Parts of Irpin are now under Russian control, but authorities say they won't surrender.
10,000 people, maybe less, are staying in Irpin and don't want to leave our city. 70% of our city is now Ukrainian territory, with Ukrainians living there. 30% is controlled by Russian occupiers. But we are doing everything to liberate 100% of our city.
Our correspondent Abdulaziz Mohammed has more on the fighting in Irpin.
We are in the heart of Irpin city, the front line where the Ukrainian army is engaged in fierce fighting with the Russians. We tried to advance towards downtown, but it seems that the Russians made it before us. The Ukrainian troops are shooting in all directions, saying Russian snipers are stationed on rooftops to prevent the civilians from leaving the city. Dozens of residents were seen leaving from this area, as well as the eastern side of Irpin. The Ukrainians said they managed to fend off the Russians this morning. You can see the Ukrainian army's front line. They're trying to force the Russians back. To my right, also a fierce exchange of gunfire. It seems the Russians are advancing from more than one direction. Heavy machine guns and anti-aircraft guns are fired. They are firing into the air. It seems like a drone is hovering above. In this spot, and a few minutes before we arrived, dozens of residents had left the city. They claim the Russian forces granted them only a 15-minute window to leave the area before roads were closed. Many of the residents who were stranded in the eastern suburbs of Irpin managed to leave. Ukrainian troops say they are committed to force the Russians back, since thousands of civilians remain trapped in northern and eastern parts of the city.
Power has been restored to a damaged supply line at Ukraine's Chernobyl nuclear plant, which is under Russian control. The site lost all external power on Wednesday, sparking international concerns about the radioactive material stored there. But there are new concerns for the safety of staff at the plant. Hundreds of workers are suffering physical and mental exhaustion. That's according to the UN's nuclear body. You're with Al Jazeera. Still ahead. Colombians choose a new Congress in a poll that could launch political change months before a presidential vote. We take an exclusive look inside the battle for Myanmar and meet the young people behind the resistance.